Hi, my name is Peter Lorenzen, and this is my oral presentation for the Drama 15 class, spring semester of 2012. The play that I chose to review was The Basement at the Bottom of the End of the World by Nadine Graham. This play is found in our multicultural textbook, and we reviewed it in the early weeks of the class. This play deals with the multicultural aspect through its characters and also through a black and white racial conflict that it has. Both the main characters have never encountered the opposite race, and it shows they only know what they have learned from their families and friends or stories in the past. Now a little bit about the setting of the play. It's set in a basement for most of the play. And the outside world is supposedly coming to an end with the Earth out of its orbit and going out of control and then going to crash in the sun, supposedly. The main character, Danine, walks into the basement thinking it's unoccupied. And as she enters, she finds some cherries in a can lying around and starts eating anything she can find. And then that's when Paul, the second main character, enters and points a gun at her. Paul believes Danine is stealing from him and only notices that is a black girl who is doing the stealing. The two of them have a dispute, and when Danine tries to leave, all of a sudden an earthquake happens and Paul accidentally shoots her. The two have a conversation about each other, finding out where they came from, the type of names they have, and then they soon start to explain and understand the differences in their cultures. A couple of themes that I would like to talk a little about is the character development of the main characters and the racial theme and how it relates to today's world. The first character is named Danine, who is a black girl at the young age of 17-ish, as described in the play. Danine has not had much contact with white people and only knows what she was taught. As she talks to Paul, she starts to find things out that she didn't know. You see her start to change as she first makes fun of Paul's name because it's boring. A quote in the story is, it takes no imagination to come up with a name like Paul, says Danine. Paul sounds like Bob, and Bob's the plainest name I know. All of your names sound like Bob. Billy, Bob, Paul, Bob, Richard, Bob. Danine then tries to explain about black names and says how black people put a lot more into their names. And Paul then talks about how all the names rhyme, and Danine says that they rhyme because they're rhyming people. Danine shows she has a immaturity about her throughout the story, and is always changing the way she talks, and she shows her immaturity through her doll that she carries around with her, who calls it her niece, her daughter, and her sister. The second character I'd like to talk a little about is a white guy named Paul, who, as the play describes, is 19-ish years old. Paul thinks nobody respects him or white people. So he tells a story about his father being in war to Danine, and he tells Danine how she's not worthy to walk on the same ground as her father. Paul's very concerned about the way his father's perceived, and he's very sensitive about his father. He wants him to be portrayed and respected at all times. And this is just the way he is. He doesn't think Danine or her people would respect. someone that was in a war or white people. Paul at first is a person who thinks he doesn't need anyone else in his life to survive, but as the play goes on, he sees Deneen dying, and he tries to fulfill her dream of the prom and trying to keep her alive. Deneen talks about going to prom. She wishes she could have as she's dying, and she talks to Paul about it. Paul went and says yes to all our questions, and then says no, he was never the prom king and queen, and that's all Deneen cares about. She wanted, and this is another aspect of her immaturity, as that's all she cares about is the prom and how everyone sees her. As the play continues, the two characters struggle to survive with each other until they find a bunch of hidden food in the basement. Deneen starts to talk about how she would have been getting ready for her prom, and Paul realizes that he might not be so different. Deneen thought she was good at understanding people, but realizes she was wrong about Paul because he shot at her. Paul constantly tells Deneen that he shot her in an accident, and as Deneen starts to lose consciousness, Paul pleads with her to stay because he doesn't want her to die like the rest of his family, and he doesn't want to be alone. He realizes it's better to live with someone than no one at all. Throughout the entire play, the characters of Deneen and Paul are constantly contradicting each other. Everything they say, they argue about. The characters continue to search for common ground that they can both share and hope that their cultural biases don't drive them apart. One question the author asks at the beginning of the play is, does it take a situation this extreme to bring our culturally diverse society together? This question really relates to today's society because people are always making judgments about others before they know anything about the person. And I think this is a great question because it makes you look and ask yourself if you are one of those people that generalizes others' cultures or heritages. And it brings into perspective the cultural differences about racism around the world today. This is my oral presentation, and thank you very much.